Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners are present.
Commissioner Larry here? Yeah, I see him.
And at this point, I am going to turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Terry Kelly.
I would like to read a letter of commendation. Chief Deputy Gagne, I'm sorry. On May 15th, 2021, at approximately 12:50 a.m., Auburn Police and Fire were dispatched to 248 Turner Street, a 4-unit apartment building, for a reported structure fire. The south side of this building was nearly fully engulfed, with thick black smoke filling the interior and billowing out of multiple windows and entryways. I arrived within seconds of receiving this call, and I had only been a few blocks away. And so I was surprised to see an Androscoggin County Sheriff's Department police vehicle already upon the scene upon my arrival. As I ran towards this building, I observed approximately 4 to 5 individuals running south on Turner Street away from the fire. I briefly stopped them and asked if they lived in the building at 248 Turner Street. They stated they did. I then asked if they knew if anyone was still inside, and they informed me that there were people still inside. I continued to run toward the fire, and as I made my way up the front porch steps of 248 Turner Street, observed multiple people begin to exit the building, with an Androscoggin County Sheriff's Deputy Andrew Levesque, following behind them. He was the last one out. While coughing heavily, he told me that it would be impossible for us to re-enter the building at this time due to the severity of the smoke. I made my way over to the building, to the parking lot of Fortin's Funeral Home, located directly across the street, which was where the occupants of 248 Turner Street had fled after escaping the fire. I was then able to locate an individual from each of the 4 apartments within the building and confirm that everyone who resided within each of them was present and accounted for. A few hours later, I was speaking with one of the tenants, Michael Treadwell, who lived in a second-floor apartment of 248 Turner Street with his wife and 4 children. During this conversation, he stated in substance, "Thank God for that officer. If it hadn't been for him calling out and shining his flashlight around, I'm not sure that we would have been able to find our way out because I couldn't see anything due to all the smoke." Based upon my own observations at the scene of this structure fire, as well as my conversation with Mr. Treadwell, I firmly believe that Deputy Levesque Deputy Levesque not rushed into the building as he had without hesitation, multiple lives could have very well been lost due to smoke inhalation or otherwise. Therefore, I would like to personally recommend Deputy Andrew Levesque be commended for performing above and beyond expectations due to his rapid response and selfless actions in evacuating the occupants of this building. Deputy Levesque was not equipped with any special clothing or breathing apparatus to protect him from exposure to fire or smoke inhalation. Yet he still put the well-being of others before his own personal safety. Respectfully submitted, Sergeant Matthew N. Ely, Patrol Supervisor, Patrol Team B.
Commissioner Medora?
Deputy Levesque would join me, I would like to take this moment to recognize you and thank you. And so we have this recognition, and so we applaud your valor and very much appreciate your work. And we know you don't do it for the award, so thank you so much for that.
And Commissioner Michaels has a little something for you, appreciation.
Deputy Levesque, we'd like to give you a very, very small token of our appreciation for your outstanding service above and beyond the call of duty, when you weren't even on duty. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For representing the college so well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
sir.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
thanks for coming. Okay, I want to take just a moment and go over just a matter of procedure. And it has been brought to my attention many times over the last year, and then most recently, not by every commissioner, but certainly a super majority of the commissioners, one by one, have expressed their displeasure with the level of decorum and debate in our meetings. And so I am committed to do what I can, do my part to change this. I'm committed to use the gavel more and follow the rules of order. I need the commissioners' help. When you see things that are going out of the rule of order, that you will call rule of order and let's stop and let's get things back on track. And let's all do our part to just raise the respectability and the integrity of our meetings. Commissioner Michael was concerned about some of the issues at the meeting and addressed them, and I asked him if he had addressed that here
Actually,
tonight.
Madam Chairman, I printed out part of the bylaws and then gave a description of some examples of what's appropriate and not appropriate traditionally. And maybe we should table this for one meeting until we have a full house, so everybody is here to discuss it.
Okay.
That'd be all right.
That's fine with me. And there's not a motion. I mean, it's just a procedural point. So we can definitely, if that's what everyone would like to do, bring that up at the next, discuss his handout at the next meeting. Okay, let's go right to our agenda. And we are at number 5, accept and approve the waiver of the reading of the minutes of June 2nd. Commissioner Medora.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of June 2nd, 2021.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? And opposed? And I will need a verbal from Commissioner Larry.
Opposed? Thank you.
So we have 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and you-
Abstain.
because you were not here, of course. Thank you. Okay, review and approval of all warrants. A motion, please.
Madam Chair, I move to approve manual payroll warrants 2120, 2121, 2122, 2139J, 2140J, and 2141J.
Second,
I'll second that.
and discussion about the warrants this week. Okay, seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Okay. And I need a verbal from Commissioner Larry.
Opposed? Thank you.
6-1. Maine County Commissioners Association meeting.
Opposed?
Yes, so they, one of the things they talked about was broadband.
Opposed?
Noted.
No, his signal froze.
Okay. Not much to report. The governor does want to coordinate with the association with the spending of the funds. So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but she has a plan for spending, or I think for spending the state's funds, which is being presented to the legislature. There's 600 bills pending in the legislature, and not sure how that's all going to pan out, but they are meeting. And hate to inform you, but I am going to be no longer able to serve on the association. And so in the near future, the board needs to find an alternative commissioner to attend. And same with the risk pool and AVCOG.
Okay. 500 bills. I mean, yesterday, what was it? 34 bills were passed, and today it was last I looked, it was up in the 40s. They're going fast and furious.
I'm sure they'll cast away most of them, and the leadership will focus on things that they want reviewed. That's my guess.
Do you have a date or you want to get back to us on a date that you'd like to step down for the MCCA?
I would like to see next meeting for us to choose somebody else.
Next meeting, we will put that on the agenda. Okay, thank you. And thank you for the time that you put in the MCCA.
Thank you.
Like every month that comes at the most inopportune time. At least when I was doing it, it was like, that was the one day, it was always the hardest to go. So I appreciate it. Okay, Central Maine Workforce Board.
Not a whole lot, just that a new representative has been nominated and appointed from Androscoggin County in addition to myself. From representing St. Mary's Healthcare, Steve Jorgensen. Work is still ongoing to get, as many Maine people back to work as possible. So I don't have a great deal for you at this time, but hope to at the next meeting.
Thank you. Treasurer's report.
So for May, not much has changed from April. All departments are still within budget. The jail, this current month, June, is the end of its fiscal year, and it is within budget. There are no concerns. The building improvement question that came up for the last report has been fixed. So the building improvement line is over by 18,000, which of the project came in higher, but it offsets. The jail is lower than budget in some areas. So overall, it's still fine. So I have no concerns. Everything looks great for the end of May.
Excellent.
Any questions for the treasurer before we take a vote? All those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report? Opposed? And I need a verbal from Commissioner Larry, please.
Opposed, thank you.
Administrator's report.
Okay, just very quickly, the 2022 budget process is still in progress. Commissioner Poirier and I attended an initial ARPA meeting in Auburn to explore if there are any major projects that we could all participate in to improve the region. And more meetings are being planned. More participants will be invited. And if Commissioner Poirier wants to add to that, he's certainly welcome to. We are still reviewing the American Rescue Act interim final rules. And Clarice is still attending online meetings. We're wondering if they'll ever end. I will now pay more particular attention to the expanded use of money that we can use due to loss of revenue. We will have a larger loss than anticipated, and we'll come back to the board with more information and suggestions. At first, we didn't think it was going to be enough loss of revenue to really amount to a lot, but once we actually did the calculations, and I did them separately and Clarice did them, and we compared notes, and we were right on the money both ways. I am continuing to review employee evaluations and other employee issues. The courthouse held a fire drill this week, and everybody was out. Due to June having 5 Wednesdays and the July 7th meeting canceled, the next meeting is July 21st. And so we asked commissioners to stop in the treasurer's office and sign warrants between July 6th and 8th. And we'll send a memo out to remind you of that. If you could do that. Boy Scout troops will be doing a flag raising ceremony in front of the courthouse. Date has not yet been set, but as the new flag is put up, that's come in. And I'm still catching up from being on vacation last week. I'll be out a few days next week. It was questioned as to whether there are those that need to take certain courses that you're required to. We discovered the harassment prevention course. Only one of you has taken that. That is online through the MMA risk management. So the rest of you get to it. And if you aren't able to get in, get to Sandy and she'll help you how to show you how to do that. Other than that, life is good in Androscoggin County.
Do you know what the anticipated loss is?
Pardon?
What's the anticipated loss number?
Well, the anticipated revenue loss that we have, and we've got to figure out, okay, what numbers go each year. But the number we have right now is 859,000.
Okay.
Because as we go back, we had money in previous years for the jail. That money, we didn't get anything last year because it was for the previous year. And then this coming year, we normally would get the money, the year we're in, that's just now ending for the jail. We would normally get those funds last July, and they didn't come. They're gonna wait until after this July. So we were significantly, our budget's
Okay.
revenue was significantly.
That's a good one.
Had three, if I remember right, we had three separate outbreaks that would have resulted in considerable overtime. Is that, can you add that into the losses, COVID losses?
No, because this is just revenue as opposed to expenditures.
Okay. Other than civil, that's obvious. You'd have a loss in civil. What are some of the other departments?
The primarily the jail, the state funding in the jail and some other areas.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
So if it's just revenue, then the money, extra money that we had spent to house state inmates would not constitute a loss. I just wonder, if that's something to consider, because that was a fair amount of money.
No, you just, how they have you do it is take your 2019 number and then you go to your 2020 ending number and the difference. And then you can add, you go back 3 years and look at the increase and use that number or 4.1%, whichever is higher. Ours, there was because of the way the jail funding came, primarily, we had a significant increase in a previous year, which allowed us to increase the percentage each year. So we've still got to calculate next year and the year after.
That's revenues only.
Yes.
What do we normally get for the jail from the state?
1.5 to 2 million, roughly, in that number. The year before, we got, I think it was 2.4.
This year, nothing. Nice. Okay.
Other questions for the administrator?
Madam Chair.
Did we interrupt you or were you finished?
No, I'm finished.
Okay, Commissioner Larry.
Thank you. Mr. Post, normally we received an email from one of the staff members reminding us and giving us the link for that training. If that could be sent out again, that would be helpful. I've been wondering where it was for quite a while, actually. So thank you.
The link for the training.
The harassment.
If Sandy, actually, I'll just say it in the
Okay.
mic. If Sandy would send the commissioners the link for the training. She's doing the notes, she'll hear that.
Thanks, Sandy.
Okay, are we ready to move forward? No more questions or comments? And we're to the comments from the public. We have a member of the public here. Would you welcome this evening? And is there anything you would like to talk about or any concerns or questions you have? Thank you for coming.
We do have one member on the Zoom. So if you want, if Cheryl has any questions, now's the time to raise your hand.
How's that? Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, if that could be repeated again, I could barely hear that. I don't know if anybody else could. If they
Is
are
there
on.
anyone else from the public, either on Zoom or in person, that has a comment or a question or something they would like to address the commissioners about.
And do they raise their hand in order to do that, or how do they do that?
Well, we called them out by name to start.
So there's a Stephanie and a Sharon.
Are they, either of them raising their hand? Okay, thank you for joining us tonight, Stephanie and
Thank you.
Sharon. Okay, let's move on to actions on rescue funds. I don't have actions per se, but as we, if you remember at our last meeting, we wanted to start having staff people put some numbers together for us. And we didn't have a vehicle to do that.
You
And
will
so I sort of
discover
put
You
that.
have in your packets tonight.
Okay,
Proposal of what we're coming up with so far.
so I would like to sort of keep that on our agenda. So as every week as we discuss the American Rescue Plan, if we want to start assigning people to get information for us and all. If there's an actual vote on the expenditures, that will be on the agenda and identified, just so everybody knows, we're not just going to put an ambiguous comment on there like that. Okay, there was Commissioner Larry, video conferencing policy. And I'm going to, if he would like to, ask him if he would like to introduce it. And then just read the motion, please. And then after a vote in a second, we'll have commentary, comments, or questions. Go
Sure,
ahead.
thank you. When the county has video conferencing for people to attend county commissioner meetings, workshops, or public hearings virtually, their faces shall be displayed on the screen unless the attendee, i.e. citizen, wants to not have their face shown, at which point the attendee may choose to use a disable camera option or turn their camera off on the video conference. Video conference includes systems such as, but not limited to, Zoom or other real-time video links to allow the public to see and hear the commissioner meetings, workshops, or public hearings virtually. The commission will take reasonable steps to ensure that anyone speaking at the meeting, whether in person or remotely, will be able to be heard, and all in attendance, whether in person or remotely, will be able to hear everyone else. The commission will take reasonable steps to ensure that an audible and legible video recording will be posted in a publicly accessible spot on the county website for all county commissioner meetings, workshops, and public hearings. And I make
Okay,
that
thank
motion.
you. Is there a motion concerning this this proposed policy?
I just made that motion, Madam Chair. I was
You
interrupted.
introduced it. I didn't hear you make.
I
you-
made
would you
the,
like-
I
Would you like to
went
make
to,
the motion?
I went to make the motion and you cut me off, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a motion by Isaiah Larry. Is there a second? Okay, seeing no second, the issue is closed. All right, let's go on to discussion items. The American Rescue Plan. Let me get my notebook out here. Last time we went around the circle, we got a lot of really good ideas. I think at this point, everything's on the table, nothing's off the table. And I'm hoping that every week we can build on those ideas, either with new ideas or maybe something you heard last week and got you thinking and you would like to add to it. So we can either go around the table or you can just jump in if you have ideas you'd like to put out there. Commissioner Kelly.
In addition to what I suggested at the previous meeting, our local veterans organizations, I would also like to suggest donations to our local food pantries, not only Good Shepherd, which is, one of the larger, but, our smaller food pantry organizations, in our smaller towns like Mechanic Falls, Poland, Turner. Every community has its own, facility. And I think it would be nice if we could, contribute something, to help people in need in our local smaller communities.
Excellent. Is that a one-time donation?
I don't know. I mean, probably. But I mean, we'll have to, figure out, what our, numbers are and what the possibilities are in that regard. I don't really, probably a one-time.
And I guess if we did something like this, we'd need to discuss it as a board and find out how we want to actually put feet to that. Like, do we want to invite them in, ask them to present with maybe a specific need they have, or just have an amount, or so that's something for everybody to be thinking about and pondering. Great suggestion. Someone else, Commissioner Ford.
Again, I attended the meeting with the administrator. And one of the things I wanted to share was they have the same concerns as we do as far as how to spend it. They're looking for collaboration to get into a big project where the communities, the county get together by pooling their money, and perhaps by pooling their money, also qualifying for some other types of grants or assistance, so that it makes a bigger impact to the entire county, not just the individual. Because it's like we have a lot of money, but we also know that when you start looking at construction projects or things, what we perceive, not perceived as a lot of money, but it suddenly is not, it's not as powerful as you think it is. And then, of course, the other thing is the buy-in from everyone being involved, if we can bring multiple people together. So I think that's an excellent idea. One of them that he mentioned, and I won't go there because I believe the Auburn mayor wants to make announcements next week. I'll let him have his thunder. Is the concern I had on one of them was the ongoing costs afterwards, which I think we've discussed also earlier, that he had one idea that, yeah, but who's going to fund it afterwards? And that's a concern. The other thing, there was representation from the local chamber there. And one of the things, when they were talking in general, it was shared that the businesses that have been giving feedback to the chamber president, I believe that's what she is, or administrator, I'm not sure exactly what her title is that they don't want loans, by the way. So I know that was one of your things, Sally. They said they don't need loans. So to that effect, I did ask about why we were not part of the chamber. I'd like to throw that out. I'm going to go off a little bit off subject, but the chamber serves 16 communities. We're made up of 14 communities. I think if we had participation, I'd like to see Larry perhaps represent us there. And I don't know exactly what the procedures are as far. I'm not trying to say that 7 of us should run over to chamber meetings. I'm just saying the business community is part of Androscoggin County. And I believe the fees are not that expensive. I don't know if you have
I
some.
was surprised at how inexpensive they are. So, yeah, I had a brief conversation with her afterwards and she's going to get back to me.
Okay, because I think there's some, I think it's good to hear what they are saying, because they talked about employment challenges, of course. I think we've all seen that in the news. But I think that would be a wonderful thing. That's about all I have to say. I mean, I think are we getting reports? Are we specifically asking for each department to give us a report? I guess I want to clarify what you were referring to earlier. I mean, have we gone to the court? Is the court, are we asking them what they would like to see us do within the county building specifically?
Only yes, I'm trying to think of his title. Spoke with Dave and I here a month ago. About doing some work in the courtroom and so on. I'm not sure how we're trying to figure out, as everybody else is, as to whether it qualifies and whatnot, which we will do. But so we've had some conversation. There's not a lot of, well, it's a fairly a fairly expensive renovation in the courtroom. They need painting and rugs and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Um,
Now, would those expenses be normally funded through ongoing operating expenses?
That
going
would
forward in the
normally
County.
Be shared with state and county. And depending on who had any money as to, in the past, as to who put up how much. And there were times when I had to tell the state, I'm sorry, we don't have any money, and they funded, a couple of things on their own. So,
So if I understand correctly, and I'm sure I don't when it comes to this plan, but I think you and I had a discussion about building expenses. We couldn't do bonding type building expenses, but we
Right.
could do ongoing building expenses.
Based on some of those expenses, on page 60 of the interim final rule, says that you can do certain things, and that those certain things had to be with the money that you lost. And my response to you at that time, I didn't think we'd lost a lot, but then when we went back and actually looked at how that jail funding came and so on, so that we did lose much more, we're back taking a strong look at it.
Okay, so like also looking at the probate court,
Mhm.
I understand we're
Yes.
trying to, we did some work last year, I believe, within the budget to do some repairs to the flooring.
Right.
And so is that something that we can, I know it's not about air quality at this point, but I guess I'm still seeing that as a possibility maybe.
That may be a possibility under that particular section. And we just came up with that number just this week, so we're gonna take a strong look, and we're hopeful. That's all I'll say at this point. We should have more information for you at the next meeting.
Okay. Can we also address inadequacies of this meeting room, as far as I'm concerned? Is that something that can be done so that we are available to the public in a better format than currently? Because I really feel we work with a recording which is done at the best level that we can do. No disrespect to the people that are, but is there a better way to do this? So that, the public can attend physically and also electronically.
Better equipment?
Better equipment, more comfortable chairs. I got nothing against church pews, but perhaps. I mean, I don't even. Yeah, and I understand. Can you tear down a wall to make this room bigger? I don't know. But I'm just saying, during the pandemic, you realize that we had inadequate space for the public. And is this an opportunity to perhaps make the conference room better? I mean, I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
So,
He's next door, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, to kick out the DA.
what about this one?
Room we don't use.
It's a room we don't use, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That used to be an exterior wall, so the low bearing. Low bearing wall.
We can't put a steel I-beam like they do on HGTV and all those shows. Oh, okay.
So if you go in there, it's very, very low.
Can we put the recording guy in there and we'll sit out there instead, can you go? No, I'm just saying, you look at opportunities when you have them. And I think this would be a good time to address those.
To do with the space, that room, that room. Behind that door is a hall, right? You just sneak out
Yes.
there sometimes.
And the district attorney,
That
I think he's
entranceway-
in there, but I don't think I don't mean to sound rude, but if we can find him an adequate space someplace else, perhaps that's an opportunity. the Historical Society space. I mean, I know they're looking for other space. Is this a time?
We'll take a look.
That Foyer way could be used. What's in 209?
It's the district attorney's clubhouse for when he's
Is it
when he's in the building.
that room?
Hey, sauna.
Basically.
The Auburn meeting, when they were talking about working together, were they talking about everyone contributing a portion, a percentage, all in? What are their, how do they perceive this working?
Working together says, yes, show me the money, yes. Show me parts of the money. And to that extent, I'm wondering, have we actually, do we know if every town that is in the county is getting money or not?
Yeah.
They all are.
The amounts are, of course, significantly
17
different,
or
but
something.
they all are.
That's, I thought it was just below 20 they were getting. Okay.
Excuse me.
They're getting just below $20 million.
Between the 14 towns?
Auburn is getting just below.
Oh,
40.
yes, Auburn. Yeah, Auburn and Lewiston, I know are receiving funds, but I'm concerned about Lisbon, Turner. You know,
And Lewiston were direct recipients from the federal government. The other was funneled through the state and came out. And so those numbers, my understanding was based on a different formula, and so it didn't amount to as much. I've seen those numbers. I can go back and dig them out.
so should we, as a board, have you, Sally, and Larry, send a letter to each of the towns and tell them about the collaboration? I mean, is there, when we're trying to say that we want to spend this money, do we want to talk to these towns and ask them? And I throw this out because I'm not suggesting we do or not, but Auburn, you know, we had this meeting where they stepped forward and talked about collaboration. Do we at least reach out to these communities and say, we've been approached about collaboration? Is it something also that they are interested in? I mean, I realize the numbers would be much smaller than the Lewiston, Auburn areas. Bought some money, but do we want to go there or not? I mean, if you don't, that's fine with me too. I'm not, but I'm just saying I'd like to make sure they know.
That puts us in a little bit of a quandary in that I was looking that we would reach out to all of the other towns. I don't want to, because of the way that the group is coming together and is going to involve everybody, I don't want to step on toes there, with something that's already starting to happen region-wise. And so I don't want to, as I thought about, reaching out, I don't want to overstep those bounds. But it is certainly worth thinking as to how we're going to do that.
If we ever got to the place where the board thought that that's the direction they wanted to go, we would definitely want to get some town input, go to our towns and get some input because it affects, what we do. Obviously, they're the ones that pay, the towns pay the bills and on what we do. And so, yeah, I guess my question is, I'm not quite sure if we're there yet, if we're all together gelled, if we know enough about it to actually even decide if that's a direction we want to go or not, or.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think, in order for us to, really gauge our response, we need to know what the objectives are. I mean, what's the intent? What do they want to do with this large sum of money gathered? If they were to gather it, what would they want to do? You know what I mean?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Larry.
Thank you. So I guess, we've talked an awful lot in the past. We've mentioned about, bringing the public in, getting everybody together. I see Commissioner Poirier kind of expressing some interest in seeing, whether we've reached out to the towns or not. And I know you yourself had talked about people scheduling in with the administrator. So I guess we originally had sort of plan on having the towns let us know their interests as a commission. So I guess I would just urge us to follow through with that, because otherwise we may think we have this great idea as a commission or commissioners, and the time to involve the stakeholders is early, not after we have our own plans. I would encourage us to actually invite the towns to give their input now at the commission to come in and speak to us and let us know. Otherwise, organized groups will find a way to spend it before the small towns will.
I mean, yeah, and that's, we've talked about that at other meetings too, is you talk to your towns and people approach you, certainly invite them in so they can present the needs themselves. Commissioner Madore, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was reviewing the list that you presented, or not presented, but brought to us on, your proposed COVID expenditures. I really like the direction of it. I guess some questions on some of them I'll hold for another time, but I'd love to see if you haven't thought this to more. I think one of the focuses on the money I want to see is definitely internally. And we sort of talked a little bit about a new website, and I definitely feel like that would fit. I feel like it's a pretty reasonable figure, certainly less than that software. I got questions about that, but anyway. So I think I'd like to see that one added to the list. I feel like there's some consensus on that as to that. Small picture.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I guess I would like to, this might be a better question for Mr. Cody, but it's how could we go about maybe improving the air handling in the jail? It's not a complaint of how things are, but I remember that at least when I took that tour years ago, there was that rotating disc that did the air exchange, heat exchanger, so to speak. Perhaps we could look at some other type of device that would allow us to maybe increase the air exchanges in the jail. That would help protect inmate health even further than the efforts that are taken currently by increasing those air exchanges. However, we would need the heat exchanger to try to help recover that heat, so we're not losing it. But almost something in maybe in sense of a liquid system, closed loop, enclosed liquid system that would transfer the heat, but would not actually be using the same physical object from intake side to outflow side.
Yeah, I can tell.
Dave, can you jump in there? Well, while we're on that subject, last meeting, we were going to move ahead and authorize the maintenance manager and the administrator to get some updated numbers. And that's part of the reason I put number, I think it's 5 in there. Is it 5? No, number 9 in there so that we could move forward on those. Is there any will of the board to authorize them to get us some updated numbers and pursue these plans? Yes, please do.
So the contract that we had with the past contract vendors, they fulfilled it. So for them to go back through and re-engineer the whole project to include the first floor, second floor, the whole thing does have to be a new project that we have to pay for them to do. So they're not gonna come out and throw us some prices for free, because they have to engineer that.
Okay.
So when we did the basement, just the basement, that was about 15,000. So just keep that in mind before you vote.
I mean, I guess I feel like the heating system is, I think,
Correct, but you wanted updated prices on the whole building. Was what you guys wanted me to get updated prices on. So that means they need to go back and re-engineer a different system.
okay. I guess I'd like the board to weigh in and go ahead, Commissioner Poirier.
Just a clarification. So on this list that we have tonight, there's a $2.5 million price tag. Was that the 4 million bond product, then you subtracted the renovations for the basement area as far as, okay. So that's a true, not ballpark. And what you're saying is, of course, that was the estimate to do the work, but that was not to do the entire building as we're now asking you to,
Correct. And again, that's for the heating system, not the cooling.
not the cooling.
So if you're talking about air exchange for cooling and so forth, that's a different scope than what we had asked.
So last meeting, we also approved a space need analysis concerning the sheriff's, the patrol division. So now I think we're being asked is to get a proposal to do an entire evaluation of space regarding air conditioning and heating. Not space needed for staffing, which is different than what the sheriff's request was. And from there, we'll find out what, I don't want to say the damage, but what the investment would have to be to do the entire building.
For heating and cooling.
Right.
Heating and
proper-
air.
and proper air exchange.
Okay. Would we include the third, I don't know if it's the third floor. I don't know.
Like the storm side.
Yes, yeah, whatever floor that is. I don't know how this, okay. So we're literally, what you're saying is you would like, and what we kind of is, we're gonna do an evaluation of the whole building, basement, the basement up to the, not the attic, but
Correct.
equivalent of,
It's a totally different scope than what we had asked them to do before.
okay. And this would only be regarding heating and cooling.
Heating, cooling, and proper air. Airflow.
Okay. I think it needs to be done.
It's one of those things. We've been talking about it forever.
Well, I think the other thing is, one of the goals that we've said from the get-go is that we wanted to use this money to help keep the property taxes lower going forward. If we do this properly now, it needs to be done. And it does benefit all the communities in the future.
I mean, just one thing to look at is that we have 45 to 50 window air conditioners that we put in and out every year. You add up the price of electricity per unit per month, it's a significant amount.
Yeah.
Mr. Post, do you want to weigh in on the direction or what you foresee as a direction to go?
Simply tell us to proceed. We'll get new, as far as the new
As long as it stays in with being able to use the rescue funds instead of going to a bond, you got me, I'm in.
That's part of what this will.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
I'm in.
I mean, and at this point, we're just asking you to get a price for what it's gonna be, so we're still gonna have to vote.
Mhm.
Once you get that quote, we're still gonna have, so that, at that point.
Shock is there with just the price of, everybody just put your seatbelt on. But I guess, we've always known that this is going to, that's why we were talking about bond, because we knew it was beyond our scope to raise money. And certainly the budget committee has questioned why we haven't done this up till now, several years in a row. And last year, they actually admonished us because we had not moved forward on it. So, I think people understand it. It's just, it's still a lot of money.
And
It's still hard.
Roland's-
It's still a hard issue.
Roland's right. We do this right now, we can avoid raising taxes to pay for it
Yeah.
for the
well,
next 10 years.
And it's not improving by our waiting. Price tag is just gonna get higher the longer we wait.
Make a motion, Roland. I'm good with it. That's gone.
Okay, so let's jump back up to 9A. That's to actually take an action to,
What list is this, Sally? What am I?
on the business. Like I put an open-ended actions on, because last week we wanted to move forward. What, the list you,
Agenda. Okay.
yes, I back up to the
Okay.
agenda.
I didn't know if you had a
9A.
separate list.
Sorry,
was
I
gonna-
lost you there.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
good.
I wasn't very clear.
So putting forward a motion that we authorize the Administrator Larry Post to get a proposal regarding a total evaluation of the heat and air conditioning of the county building, not including the jail, correct? I just want to make sure that I'm saying that correctly.
Second that.
No, that does include the jail. It will include the jail because of heat.
The heating section does include the jails.
Oh, okay,
Not the cooling, the cooling is separate than the jail, two separate systems,
okay.
so we would only be updating heating systems of the jail.
And adding a cooling system to this building. Okay, the jail already has its own. Oh, okay, I was not aware of that.
Including the jail for the heating systems.
Oh,
This is to get an evaluation.
Yes.
To get the
To
new
us get
estimates.
some updated new estimates. And are you still with the changes he made? Is your second still stand?
Yep.
It's about the bids or the same company?
So what I would propose is that we ask this company to give us a proposal of what it would cost them to design and quote out the system. So they may come back and say it's gonna cost you $10,000 for us to draft up concept idea and propose to you a price of what it would cost the job.
Could that concept be used in theory, like just the outline with going with another
Concept.
company? We could take that concept once we paid for it, or is that their priority?
No, they would get the concept, we would hire them again, and they would write up an FRP. To go forward.
So it's not their work product. We could take that.
We're buying a service from them.
Okay, thank you. That's good, because then we could,
You can
Take
use
it out
that
to bid.
service and go to quote and ask anybody to do it. They're an engineering firm. They're not HVAC. or-
Okay.
perfect. So
we
they
get
don't
it,
have a horse in the race.
And then we go to bid and we can bid
Perfect.
it out for the best.
And fairly.
Okay.
And we can still keep this company as the, let's say, the architect of the heating and cooling system.
Okay.
Smart.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'll second that.
We have
I
a
think I
set,
already
Brian
did.
already, he jumped in, or Commissioner Ames, but any other comment before we vote?
Yeah, Madam Chair, can the motion be repeated?
This is a motion to have an engineered proposal of what it will take to, for the heating, air exchange, and cooling of the county building and the heating of the jail. Am I correct? Oh, good. Thank you. Good.
Madam Chair, can we add a not to exceed amount on that proposal? Thank you. Or on this motion, please.
Well, it's costless, I think.
there's no cost at this.
Cost of that.
Isaiah.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? And a verbal from
Opposed.
Commissioner Larry, please. Okay. so-
Opposed? Thank you.
All right, back to on the agenda. Item 10 of ideas and expanding on previous ideas for the American Rescue Plan.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I would still like to see us pursue finding out more about how to basically set up a Androscoggin County economic stimulus payment to all Androscoggin County residents, with the exception of obviously the county commission and the administrator, and the treasurer, basically just those that will be involved in this vote. But I believe that people will be able to make the best use of that money and decide what would help benefit them the most, versus chasing after grants and other things that tend to have multiple strings attached. And as try as we might, will not have, they will have costs that will continue on after the stimulus money has long disappeared.
I have a question.
Yes.
Since it wasn't here, the employee COVID pay, the 650,000. What was the breakdown for that? What was the breakdown for the employee COVID pay of the 650,000?
130 employees times $5,000.
So they
Gives
give
you
5,000.
650. Yep.
Staggered overtime or
No, it was just a straight per employee as opposed to figuring all of the hours. By the time they went back and figured all the hours, you've got so much staff time in that.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I'm
Now,
fine
is
with that.
that for all employees or employees
That-
that work the
that's-
hazard? Is that like a hazard pay or? how
That's
did
for,
you-
it works out to be all eligible employees. There are a few ineligible employees according to the rules. Those that worked from home throughout the period are not eligible under the rules. I believe everybody else is, so.
So it would be a considered like a hazard pay, like what the state is paying for hazard pay? Would you could,
Yeah.
just not the amount that they're, not the amount that they're paying for hazard pay, but.
I don't like that term hazard
I
pay, but
know,
it's,
I
it's
gotcha.
for those that were actually working, dealing with public and all of that, and, inmates and so on,
I like
throughout
it.
the period. And a lot of them, there was a lot of places that actually, were closed down, essentially, had people working from home or had people, and we were probably the most open, at least county, with dealing with public and of any of us.
Mr. Poyer, Commissioner Poyer.
So you said 130 employees. I know we have some part-time employees, so were they compensated
We're
to the
gonna-
same degree?
That part-time weren't included, and I think we have a very few part-time, and we're gonna be looking at that. This was the number that I looked at for the full-time times that amount. So we'll look at part-time. There are very few of those.
Then I can see full-time employees if they're getting the same thing as a part-time employee. I'm not
Not
sure how
gonna
that would be,
work out.
I'm not sure how that would be received.
No, we're not gonna do that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're being equitable.
When I was doing a little research on this, I thought, well, I'll just find out what our counterparts at the state were making for doing the same job. $5 an hour more for the last 66 weeks. And they still are making that. So that's
that's a
why,
good raise.
when you look at that number, 5,000 is very modest.
I'm not sure, make $5 an hour.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the
No,
dollar
I know,
amount.
I was just
meant,
kind of. wanted to throw
having
that out
worked
there
with
to you.
employees,
Yeah,
you
I'm
compensated
more
somebody
than
who's
happy with
working
that.
40-plus hours.
Absolutely.
And, no disrespect to the part-timer, but obviously he or she was not
No, you're
putting
right.
themselves at the same.
Absolutely, yeah, that would
That
definitely
was all
cause
my
a
concern
problem.
was.
Yeah,
The dollar amount is.
no, I just wanted you to have that information. I had no idea it was that
Well, I think we
much.
should make that part of the minutes when we do approve this, so that people looking from the outside, the information you have. Because when people don't know, then they make up their own story.
Yes, indeed. Other comments about this? So are you pretty sure about this amount? Like, there's no more? This amount you think is this an estimate or is this the amount you think you were looking at?
That amount was the amount that came right from here. And by taking the eligible employees times the 5,000, came up with the $650,000.
Part-time employees, we just would add on to that amount.
That would be added to if we do anything for part-timers, and we're gonna look at what we have for part-timers and how often they're working, actually. But like I said, I don't believe there are very few, and I don't think they work enough for it, so.
Okay, other comments about this, pro or con?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Larry.
So this $5,000 payment, I guess if we did do that, we should be spreading it out, because I think that may, I'm not an accountant, but I think that may kick people into a different tax bracket, and they may not appreciate that. But as noble as it may seem, I would recognize that we didn't lay off any county employees, whereas I guess I'm thinking the waitress that lost their job because of the draconian actions by the governor, and many other people that are unemployed unwillingly. Here, I think it's just, I don't think it's very fair to those folks that really got burnt by government overreaching this pandemic. And with all due respect, I appreciate all the work of the employees, but they all kept their jobs. We didn't lay anybody off. And I think we should, to be fair, I disagree with giving this out just because the state wants to give people a $10,000 plus raise. Doesn't justify us doing that, even if it's a short term for us. I just disagree with that premise. We kept everybody employed. I don't believe we laid anyone off, and nor do I believe we wish to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Modoi, did you want to weigh in?
I'm sure we'll talk about all these things in more detail as the administration kind of irons out the details and the plan on what's being proposed. So I look forward to that in the future.
Thank you for everything, Maurice.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Larry?
One thing I have heard from one of my towns was the idea of basically building a new county building and using the American Rescue money for that. I'm sort of divided on that opinion, but I am passing that along because if we built a new building or bought something that is usable and could be retrofitted, we could certainly give much more space for people, larger meeting rooms, perhaps even a larger jail area, even possibly the ability to have pods and increase space for inmates, and also possibly increase recreation areas for them. And I think it would help a lot with much of the challenges we're dealing with. And I commend, the maintenance staff for all the work that they do to make this very historic and very special building work. But I'm not at all talking about leveling the Anscombe County building by any chance. I just mean looking elsewhere and finding something that could be retrofitted or constructed. I believe retrofit might be better. Just really look into that. I think we could save the taxpayers long term. And there's only so much you can do with an old building or a Model T to try to turn it into a hyper efficient car. And I think it's the same thing with this, what we're trying to do here. Thank you.
One of the things I was thinking about when you were saying that, Commissioner Larry, is that we approved money to do a space analysis to some extent as a precursor for exactly what you're talking about. And I think you voted no to approving the money. So, we have to kind of take baby steps to figure out what we need to even start talking about the bigger picture on real estate acquisition.
And the bottom line is, I don't see this building going anywhere. We may change staffing and so on and so forth somewhat, but this historical building built in mid 1800s that is an integral part of Androscoggin County, realistically is going to stay here, and we need to make it work.
Sure,
Yeah,
Madam Chair.
I do understand what you're saying. I can't tell you how many times I've driven past Office Max thinking, That could solve a lot of problems for us right there, and so I understand what you're, because this building is getting older and going to have more, and it's never going to be an efficient, energy efficient building. It's just not going to be.
And my point is, it was stated that my vote against the building, but that study is to retrofit this building, not another building. So that's inaccurate. And I would just point out that I think we could find greater efficiencies with the actual new system. There's only so much, like you mentioned yourself, Madam Chair, there's only so much we can insulate this building. It's a brick building. But I have to correct Administrator Post. I'm not advocating for leveling that building. I already said that, but I'm talking about finding somewhere new. And I think it will be prudent for us to do so. And while some of these industries sadly have been destroyed by the governor's draconian measures, there may be buildings that we could make good use of. Thank you.
I guess going forward, we do have to realize that within the next 3 or 4 decades, the jail's going to probably have to be replaced. Do you agree with that?
That all depends. That all depends on surrounding, whether we can purchase some surrounding buildings and property and add on to the jail. Yeah, it depends. But if it's not for 40 years, I'm not gonna really care.
Many meetings ago, you brought up something really interesting about the jail and all we're doing, and that was a phase. Weren't you the one that brought up about doing this in phases, have a phase 1 and a phase 2, and possibly, when we were talking, back then, we were talking about bond, but when we were talking about bond money, laying the groundwork for a phase 1, then when that was paid off, moving into a phase 2. But I'm a little fuzzy on can you remind me what that was?
Yeah, well, I think it's easy to get overwhelmed when you look at maybe some of the challenges facing us for space and capital needs. But I had a discussion with one of the staff members just kind of about space needs in the future. And as we all know, the jail has been overcrowded for a number of years. And in the time, even when it was built, it was relatively insufficient for the needs. And so, to Commissioner Isaiah's comment about space needs like recreation and other sort of activity space and meeting space and medical space and all that. The sheriff had sort of talked to me about, this isn't part of the plan right now, but to, maybe in the future, think about a piece of real estate in which it can be set in phases. So a lot of communities make safety buildings. And so when we look at, the needs of the sheriff department, it's hard to retrofit that space to meet the standards of the 21st century for police forces, needs, and including the considerations of their safety. But also we have on the other side, this kind of thought about consolidating 911, another public safety issue that doesn't have sufficient space in the building. But we also look at the 911, our PSAP, and potentially growing that just from the not-external bring loose in Auburn calls, but just from the organic nature of what's going on out there in that space, kind of we potentially be maxed out in the near future as well. So yeah, I think, maybe if we're looking blue sky, ideally, we're looking at it, maybe the best thing to do is to buy a piece of real estate and make a safety building. And then when the jail needs to happen, put the jail next to the safety building. So the sheriff's office, so there's synergies about the offices there, kind of like the way we have it now. But, I'll say we can't throw away what we have here. I haven't shut the door on the concept of just utilizing the space we have or expanding it, whether it's something creative like building over Pleasant Street or taking over Pleasant Street, because there's really nothing there. or maybe the YMCA, who doesn't seem particularly keen on leaving from my conversations with him. But, you know, all possibilities that we have.
When I was rethinking about what you'd said before, the reason I sort of like that is we wouldn't just be using the rescue funds then to take care of needs we have now, but we'd be laying the groundwork and helping, you know, the next generation when they do have to build the jail. So that's a way that the rescue funds would go into the future and have future savings also. But, you know, like I say, everything needs to be on the table at this point. Okay, let's take a couple more minutes. Anyone else have suggestions they'd like to put out there? We've got several weeks for everybody to be thinking about these and mulling them over. And
Sure, Madam Chair.
yes, Commissioner Larry.
I'd like to ask if we could then authorize Mr. Cody to pull together an estimate for a audiovisual system, basically using that American Rescue money. And I think we've discussed this a little bit as a county commission in setting up the ability for the public to, and if there is ever a need, which hopefully is not typical, the need for attending remotely for commissioners, that we would have that system put in place. I commend Mr. Cody and his staff for the work they've done over the past year to make this work. But as he said himself, it's not ideal. So if we could get that sort of a quote, that would be helpful. So that we make sure we try to put that in there at an early time.
For you to put together a wish list of equipment, is that something, I know you had people in here just a little while ago.
Doing it, I would take what you guys are requesting to the vendors that do it for a living and ask them to do a quote.
Right, they wouldn't charge us for that quote, would they? Is anybody opposed to that or in favor of that? Or yes, Mr. Commissioner Poyer?
I guess my concern, Isaiah, is tying that back to my earlier comments of moving this wall down, finding if we can find a different space for the DA, I believe is who you said has that office.
Yep.
And Commissioner Michael mentioned the hallway. I mean, to me, that's all one project. And I agree with you about getting we have to get moving. But I'd like to see if we could incorporate the two pieces together.
Know what room we're going to be in before we electrify.
Buy
it.
equipment
Gotcha.
and you're changing the structure. It might.
Mr. Poirier,
Go ahead.
just a question, Commissioner Poirier. Very good points. Do you feel though that, a proper camera system and, some sort of mic system would, I guess I'm just thinking we may be able to still get some of those things long term. I'm saying not tomorrow or next month or anything, but, if we get, I'm thinking some of those might be things that could still work without, regardless of the room setting. But I certainly agree with your points about, sizing and space and stuff. But I still think we probably should at least get some quotes, because my concern is I have a feeling otherwise it will get put off to the side with bigger projects. Thank you. Good points.
Michael, yes.
I'd like to move forward on getting a grasp on the technology for the Zoom, et cetera. And we're not talking about installing it at this point, just I'd like to get some framework of, well, essentially empower Mr. Cody to get a framework together of what he thinks needed, whether the walls are kicked out or not. And, but before we actually install anything, decide on anything,
Video system,
if anything happens in the room.
it doesn't really matter what we place it. All it is different length of wiring. Follow the camera.
Sarah, yes.
I'm definitely in favor of that. When I go to, so we really benefited for quite a while from the green public television people, coming and recording all of our meetings, which right when COVID happened, we lost that. And I was really unfortunate. Got to remember that I wanted to give them one of those American awards. We should
Oh,
put them on the
yes.
list for that.
You know, he's
Spirit of America.
Spirit of America, which should
That
be
comes
coming
back,
up pretty soon, isn't it?
But on the audiovisual business, I have the pleasure to go to a lot of municipalities, and some of them I'm very impressed with what they've done to kind of bridge that gap for recording their meetings and allowing, and it would really worked out well, I think, with the whole digital participation situation. But even before that, they didn't have a volunteer come and recording their meetings. They had to really invest in some good equipment. They also have kind of different rooms than us, so that, but I think there's some room for us to kind of move in that direction for sure. I think it would benefit us.
Mr. Kelly?
No, I think that's an excellent idea. I know that, Poland, they have a little area sectioned off in their meeting room for, an audio-visual person and professional equipment, and I think that we would benefit from that greatly. Rather than, Mr. Cody having to, deal with his rolling cart and full tripod, and if we could just have, an area, where it always is. And
Like there's a consensus for you to at least look into it and come back. And what is it, 3 weeks? Or so are we 3 weeks or 4 weeks out? Yeah, and address it then.
When is the next
The
meeting?
next July 21st, 4
July?
weeks.
There's 5 Wednesdays this month, and then we're missing the first meeting next month, so.
It's on the agenda.
It's good.
Okay. Any other comments? Not, we
Madam
will.
Chair,
Yes,
the information that Commissioner Michaels was discussing at the beginning of the meeting, if he could please send that to the entire commission ahead of time, that would be helpful for it to be available for us if we are going to be discussing this in detail, or any other motions or whatever that would be appropriate. Thank you.
I'll get that out to everybody, including you, and just in case anyone's missing at the next meeting as well.
Thank you, sir.
okay. The one future agenda I have is on the July 21st meeting to vote in a new representative to MCCA. Usually the same person also then represents us on the risk pool because they have them on the same day at the same location.
We can add AvCog to that as well.
Oh, AvCog, thank you. Anything else for future agenda items? Okay, motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second?
Second.
Door, all in favor? And verbal from Mr. Larry?
Aye.
Okay, 7-0. Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.